Ethan's shift had dragged on longer than usual. The supermarket where he worked was short on staff, and he had volunteered to stay behind to stock shelves. By the time he finally got into his old car, the streets were nearly empty. The clock on the dashboard glowed past midnight, and the road ahead stretched into the quiet countryside. He rolled down the window, letting the cool night air brush against his tired face. His only thought was getting home, maybe heating some leftovers and falling straight into bed. But as he drove past the last gas station on the edge of town, something caught his eye. At first, it looked like a person stumbling along the road. The figure swayed side to side, almost losing balance with every step. Ethan slowed down, unsure. People didn't usually walk this far out of town, not at this hour. He squinted as the headlights swept over the figure. A girl, he thought, but something was off. Her skin shimmered faintly, almost glowing as though light lived beneath it. Her eyes reflected the headlights in a strange silver hue. Her clothing looked like no style he had ever seen, thin layers of fabric stitched with threads that glimmered like stars. Ethan's hands tightened on the wheel. His first instinct was to keep driving. Whatever this was, it was not normal. But then the figure stumbled again, falling to her knees. He cursed under his breath, pulled over, and stepped out of the car. "Hey, are you okay?" he called, keeping a little distance. The girl lifted her head slowly. Her eyes were unfocused, and when she spoke, her words came out slurred. "You too bright." Road spin, the accent was heavy, and her voice carried a soft echo that didn't seem natural. Ethan realized she wasn't just drunk, she was something else entirely. But she looked so lost, so weak, he couldn't just leave her there. "Look, I can give you a ride, home or wherever you're trying to go," he said carefully. She blinked at him as though she was trying to understand his words. Then she nodded with a small smile that looked both grateful and dazed. "Ride, yes. Ride home." Ethan helped her to her feet, noticing how her balance was unsteady, like someone who had had too much to drink. She leaned slightly against his arm, and though she was lighter than he expected, he could feel a strange warmth radiating from her skin. He opened the passenger door, and she slid into the seat, still mumbling to herself in half-formed sentences. Ethan sat back in the driver's seat, his heart racing. He glanced at her once more, then started the engine. The road stretched ahead, dark and silent, but the silence in the car was broken by the girl's soft humming. She stared at the dashboard lights, pressing buttons and giggling at how the air vents blew cold wind at her. Ethan shook his head, unsure if he was amused or terrified, so, "Where's home?" he asked finally. She tilted her head, thinking hard. "Far," she whispered. "But here, now, Forest Road." She pointed vaguely toward the right. Ethan frowned. "Forest Road? There's nothing out there but trees." "Home," she repeated firmly, as if that settled everything. He sighed. "Fine. Forest Road it is." He turned the wheel, guiding the car off the main road and down a smaller path that led toward the woods. The headlights lit up branches and dirt, and the air grew colder. The girl leaned against the window, her breath fogging the glass, eyes half closed as though she might drift off to sleep. Ethan kept glancing at her, questions piling up in his mind. Who was she? Where did she come from? Why was she glowing? But every time he opened his mouth, the words froze. He wasn't sure if he wanted answers just yet. After several minutes, she stirred and sat up straighter. Her silver eyes fixed on him with sudden clarity. "You are kind," she said softly. Ethan blinked. Thanks, I guess. Not many stop. Not many care. But you..." She tapped her chest clumsily. "You care." He didn't know what to say to that. He just gripped the steering wheel tighter, focusing on the narrow road ahead. The forest grew darker, shadows twisting between the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a faint hum drifted through the night, almost like machinery. Ethan frowned and glanced at the girl, but she only smiled faintly as if she heard it too. "This is home?" he asked as the dirt path ended in a small clearing. She nodded slowly. "Yes, safe. For now." Ethan parked the car, unsure of what to do next. He had given her a ride just like he promised. But leaving her here in the middle of nowhere didn't sit right with him. Before he could decide, she reached out and touched his arm. Her hand was warm, almost too warm, and her eyes locked onto his. "Stay," she whispered. Ethan swallowed hard. He didn't know why, but in that moment he felt something shift. This wasn't just a random encounter anymore. He had stepped into something far bigger than himself, and there was no turning back. The night air seemed heavier now, filled with unseen things watching. Ethan sat frozen behind the wheel, the glow from the girl's skin casting soft light across the car. He didn't know who she was or why fate had put her in his path, but one thought echoed in his mind. His life was never going to be the same again. Ethan sat behind the wheel, staring at the strange girl glowing faintly in the passenger seat. She had called the empty clearing in the middle of the woods her home, yet there was nothing here. No houses, no lights, not even a tent, only the dark forest stretching around them. He cleared his throat. "So, this is where you live?" The girl gave a slow nod, her silver eyes reflecting the dashboard lights. "For now," she said softly, though her voice still carried that drowsy, uneven tone. Ethan frowned. He didn't like the idea of leaving her here. She looked too fragile, too lost, and far too unusual to be safe out in the woods alone. But he also wasn't sure if he should push for answers. Something about her presence made him feel that every word she spoke carried weight. As he tried to decide what to do, she leaned forward and pressed her hands against the glass of the windshield, staring at the sky. "Pretty," she whispered. "Your stars look calm." Ethan followed her gaze. The night sky was clear, full of scattered stars. To him it was just an ordinary night, but to her it seemed almost magical. "You talk like you're not from here," he said carefully. She turned her head toward him and gave a small, lopsided smile. "Not from here," she admitted as if it were the simplest thing in the world. Ethan froze, gripping the steering wheel. He had suspected as much from the start, but hearing her say it out loud made his chest tighten. "So you're saying you're an alien?" She giggled softly, leaning back in the seat. "Alien. Yes, that is what you call it." Her words slurred again and she rubbed her temples. "But, name is Kayla." The sound of her name lingered in the car. Ethan whispered at once to himself, almost testing it. "Kayla." She watched him closely now, her expression shifting between curiosity and weariness. "And you?" "Ethan," he replied. "I'm just Ethan." Kayla tilted her head as though tasting the name in her mind. "Ethan," she repeated slowly, her accent stretching the syllables. She smiled. "Kind one." Ethan let out a nervous laugh. "I don't know about kind. I just didn't want to leave you on the road." But Kyla shook her head stubbornly. "No, more than that. You stopped. Others would not." Her words made him pause. She was right. Most people would have kept driving, avoiding the strange glowing figure on the roadside. But something had made him stop. Maybe curiosity, maybe guilt, or maybe something deeper he couldn't explain. For a while, silence filled the car except for the faint hum of the engine. Then Kayla reached over and began fiddling with the radio. The static made her laugh. She pressed every button she could, fascinated by the sounds that burst from the speakers. Music, voices, commercials. To Ethan, it was ordinary background noise. To Kayla, it was discovery. "You have so many voices," she said in wonder. "Your people speak all at once." "Yeah, it's called radio," Ethan said with a small smile. "Not really special." "Special," she argued, her glowing eyes wide with excitement. "Very special." Ethan found himself relaxing, even laughing under his breath. She was strange, yes, but there was something innocent about the way she looked at everything. Suddenly her smile faded and she grew tense. Her head tilted as if she were listening to something far away. "They are close," she whispered. Ethan blinked. "Who's close?" Kayla grabbed his arm with surprising strength. "Drive," she urged. "Not safe here, go." The urgency in her voice erased his hesitation. He turned the key and the car rolled forward, bouncing slightly on the uneven dirt path. He glanced at her, but she was staring out the window, her eyes wide and alert now, no longer sleepy or drunk. As they drove deeper along the forest road, Ethan heard it too. The low, distant hum. It wasn't the sound of crickets or wind. It was mechanical, steady, and moving. Like engines searching above the trees. His stomach tightened. "What is that?" Kayla answered in a low voice. "Hunters. They look for me." The word made Ethan's skin crawl. "Hunters? What do you mean, hunters?" She shook her head, pressing her forehead to the glass. "Not explain now. Must hide." Ethan swallowed hard. This was spiraling into something far beyond what he had signed up for. He had only meant to help someone get home. Now he was driving through the woods with an alien girl being chased by something, or someone, dangerous. The hum grew louder, passing overhead. Ethan instinctively killed the headlights and slowed the car until they came to a stop under the cover of thick trees. The forest was dark, shadows pressing against the windows. Kayla leaned closer to him, whispering, "Do not move. Do not speak." They sat in silence, both holding their breath as a faint light passed across the treetops. The sound lingered, then slowly drifted away. Only when it was gone did Kayla let out a shaky sigh of relief. Ethan stared at her. "Okay, you need to tell me what's going on. Who are you running from? What do they want with you?" Kayla's eyes met his, filled with sadness and something heavier. "Because I left," she said simply. "And for that they will not forgive me." Her voice trembled, but her gaze stayed firm. Ethan realized she was not just a lost girl anymore. She was someone who had broken rules so important that others were hunting her down. As the car sat hidden in the shadows, Ethan understood one thing clearly. He was now part of this, whether he liked it or not, and the night was only just beginning. The forest was quiet again, but Ethan's mind was anything but calm. His hands still rested on the wheel, stiff with tension, while his eyes kept darting to the strange girl beside him. Kayla was leaning back against the seat, her glowing skin dimmer now as though the fear had drained her. "You really need to explain," Ethan said finally, his voice firm though low. "I just risked getting caught out here with whatever those lights were. You owe me some answers." Kayla turned her head slowly, her silver eyes shimmering faintly. "I am sorry," she whispered. "I did not wish for you to be involved." "Well, too late for that," Ethan muttered. He gestured to the woods around them. "I'm already involved." Kayla sat up straighter, folding her hands in her lap. She looked nervous, as though speaking the truth itself carried danger. But after a pause, she nodded. "I am Kayla, from the world of Lyran, far beyond your stars." Ethan's chest tightened. He had suspected, but hearing her say it so plainly still sent a shiver down his spine. She wasn't joking. She wasn't pretending. She was an alien sitting in his car, speaking as though it were the most normal thing. "Lyran," Ethan repeated under his breath. The word felt heavy on his tongue. "My people," Kayla continued softly, "are strict, very strict. We are bound by rules that shape every part of our lives. Where we go, who we meet, even who we belong to, Ethan asked sharply. "Like property?" Kayla's eyes dropped to the floor. "In a way, we are matched, paired by leaders, for reasons of power and bloodline. Choices small." Ethan felt a wave of anger rise in him. It reminded him of unfair stories he'd read from human history, times when people were treated like tools, not individuals. "So you ran away," he guessed. She nodded, her glowing hair brushing against her shoulders. "Yes, I left. I could not live as they wanted. But leaving is not allowed. Once you are chosen, you cannot refuse. They call me traitor now. And for traitors..." She trailed off, her voice tight. "They send hunters." Ethan leaned back, exhaling slowly. The pieces were falling into place. She wasn't just drunk or lost, she was escaping from a life where she had no freedom. And now dangerous pursuers were here on Earth looking for her. "Okay," Ethan said after a pause, trying to keep his thoughts steady. "I get that you're in trouble. But why me? Why get in my car? Why call this place home?" Kayla's gaze lifted to him, and for the first time her expression was sharp, clear. "Because you stopped," she said simply. "Because you did not look away when I was weak." Ethan blinked. "That's it? I just stopped my car?" She nodded solemnly. "In my people's way, when someone saves you in your lowest moment, they become bound to you. It is called the life-mate bond." The words hung in the air, heavier than the night. Ethan stared at her, sure he had misheard. "Life-mate, as in, like marriage?" Kayla tilted her head, searching for the human word. "Close, deeper. Two lives tied. One protects, one trusts. Both share fate." Ethan let out a nervous laugh, shaking his head. "That's crazy. I was just trying to be decent." You don't actually believe that, do you?" But Kayla did not laugh. Her silver eyes stayed fixed on him, calm and serious. "To you may be small. To me it is forever. You are my mate now." The air in the car grew heavy. Ethan rubbed his forehead, trying to process. He was just an ordinary guy. He worked shifts, paid bills, tried to keep his car running. And now this glowing alien girl was claiming he was her mate. Before he could argue further, the hum returned. Louder this time. Closer. Kayla stiffened, her eyes wide. "They found us," she whispered. Ethan's heart skipped. He turned the key, the engine growling to life, and pressed his foot on the gas. The car jolted forward down the dirt path, headlights cutting through branches. The sound above grew sharper, like engines sweeping low. Light flickered through the trees, scanning. Ethan gritted his teeth, pushing the car faster despite the uneven ground. "Where do I go?" he shouted. Kayla pointed toward the left. "There, stream ahead. The water hides sound." Ethan swerved, following her instructions. The car bounced wildly, branches scraping against the windows. His hands clenched the wheel, but his eyes caught Kayla's face, calm despite the chaos. Her glow brightening as though some inner strength had returned. They burst through the trees and into a clearing where a narrow stream glistened under the moonlight. Ethan drove along its edge, the car splashing through shallow water until the hum above faded again. Only when silence returned did he slow the car, panting. Kayla touched his arm gently. "You are brave," she said softly. Ethan shook his head. "No, I'm just stubborn." Her smile was small but warm. "That is enough." As the car idled by the stream, Ethan realized how far things had changed in only one night. A few hours ago he had been tired, thinking only of home. Now he was being chased by alien hunters, sitting beside someone who claimed he was bound to her for life. He looked at Kayla, who was staring up at the stars with quiet wonder. She didn't seem like a threat. She seemed lost, scared, and yet determined to survive. For the first time, Ethan felt a strange pull inside him. Not fear, not confusion, but something else. Something that whispered maybe she was right. Maybe his life really had become tied to hers. The stream trickled softly beside the car, but Ethan's heartbeat was louder in his ears. He kept scanning the dark sky through the windshield, waiting for the hum of engines to return. For the moment, the forest was still. Only Kayla's faint glow lit up the inside of the car. She sat quietly, watching him. Her silver eyes were steady, calm in a way that unsettled him. He had expected her to panic or cry, but instead she seemed certain, as though this was not the first time she had been hunted. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "You really think I'm your mate? Just because I stopped for you?" Kayla turned her head toward him, her glow brushing the shadows off her face. "Not just because you stopped. Because you saw me. Weak, lost, hunted, and still you reached out. In my people's way, that is the moment that binds two souls." Ethan rubbed his forehead. "You make it sound like fate. But I'm just a guy who works at a supermarket. I don't even know how to take care of myself half the time, let alone someone else." Her smile was small but certain. "Yet you are here. You did not run when danger came." Ethan sighed, leaning back in the seat. Her words dug into him, stirring feelings he didn't want to admit. He wanted to believe he was ordinary, nothing special. But Kayla's gaze made him feel like maybe he was something more. He glanced at her again. "So, what exactly does this mate bond mean?" "You expect me to? What, follow you into space?" Kayla shook her head slowly. "Not expect, only ask. A life mate is protector, partner, equal. Two paths joined, even if the path is dangerous." Her words lingered in the air, heavier than the night itself. Ethan swallowed. He had never believed in destiny, but she spoke with such honesty that it was hard to doubt her. Before he could reply, Kayla tensed. Her eyes darted toward the trees. "They are not far," she whispered. Ethan felt the hair on his arms rise. "Again?" "Yes, they will not stop. Not until I am returned." Her voice trembled at the last word, and Ethan realized what returned really meant. If they caught her, she would be dragged back to a life she had fought to escape. Ethan tightened his grip on the steering wheel. "Then we can't let them take you." Kayla's eyes widened slightly. "You mean, you will stay?" He surprised himself by nodding. "I don't know why. I don't know what I'm doing. But yeah, I'll stay." Something soft lit up in her expression, a mixture of relief and gratitude. She placed her hand gently over his. Her skin was warm, almost too warm, but the touch was steady, grounding. "Then we are bound," she whispered. Ethan's chest tightened. He wasn't sure what he had just promised, but he knew there was no turning back now. The hum grew faintly in the distance again. Ethan started the car, but Kayla touched his arm. "No, if we keep running, they will always find us. We must hide smarter, together." Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "All right. What do you suggest?" Kayla glanced toward the forest, her eyes glowing brighter as though drawing strength. "Your world has places they cannot easily search. Underground, deep water, places heavy with metal. Hunters use light, sound, and heat to track. We must confuse them, Ethan thought for a moment. He knew of an abandoned mine about 10 miles away. Not a place most people avoided. There's an old mine near here, he said. No one goes there. Lots of metal, too. Kayla's eyes lit with hope. Yes, that will hide us. With a plan in mind, Ethan turned the car back toward the main road, careful to keep the headlights low. As they drove, Kayla leaned her head back against the seat, her voice soft but steady. In my world, bonds like this are rare. Most are forced. Few are chosen. But tonight, I feel I chose. Ethan glanced at her, caught off guard by the emotion in her voice. You barely know me, he said quietly. Her lips curved into a faint smile. Sometimes knowing is not in years. Sometimes it is in moments. The words sank into him, stirring something deep. He didn't answer, but his silence carried weight. The road grew rougher as they neared the hills. At last, Ethan pulled the car to a stop near the dark mouth of the old mine. The air smelled of rust and stone. Trees crowded around and the silence felt thick. This is it, Ethan said.
Not exactly home, but it'll keep us hidden. Kayla stepped out of the car, her glow lighting the ground faintly.
She gazed at the mine entrance with wide eyes as though it were both frightening and hopeful. Safe enough, she murmured. Together they carried what little they had. Ethan's flashlight, a blanket from the trunk, and stepped into the darkness of the mine. The air inside was cold, the walls damp, but it was deep and quiet. As they settled inside, Kayla sat on a rock, her glow casting soft light across the stone walls. She looked at Ethan with an expression he couldn't read, half wonder, half sorrow. You could have left me, she said softly, but you did not. Do you know what that means to me? Ethan sat opposite her, his back against the stone. He shook his head. I'm just trying to do the right thing. Kayla's voice lowered. To me, you are more than that. You are freedom. The word struck him harder than he expected. He looked at her glowing form in the dim cave, realizing she wasn't just a stranger anymore. She was someone who had placed her trust in him completely. And as the night deepened, Ethan understood that the bond between them was no longer just her belief. It was becoming his, too. Ethan led Kayla deeper into the mine, each step echoing softly against the damp stone walls. The stream outside had disappeared behind them, leaving only darkness and the faint glow from Kayla's skin. Even that light seemed dim now, as if she were conserving energy. I don't like being underground, Ethan muttered, gripping his flashlight tighter. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing jagged rocks and old mining tools abandoned long ago. But I guess it's better than being out there where they can see us. Kayla nodded. Yes, hunters rely on sight, sound, and heat. Down here they are weak. We can rest and think. Ethan glanced at her. Even though she looked fragile, there was a quiet strength in her eyes. Think about what? He asked. Escape, she replied simply. We must survive. Not just tonight. Not just this place. We must plan beyond. The words made Ethan realize the danger was far from over. He had thought getting here meant safety, but Kayla was right. The hunters were relentless, and hiding would only give them time to track again. Hours passed. The mine was cold and silent, except for the occasional drip of water echoing from the ceiling. Ethan tried to rest, but his mind was on edge. Every small sound from above made him tense. He could see Kayla dozing lightly, her head against a stone wall, glowing faintly in the dark. Suddenly, a sharp vibration shook the ground. Ethan froze. They're close, he whispered. Kayla's eyes snapped open. No mistake. They track us by sound. I hear them searching outside. They will not stop until I am taken. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. What do we do? Kayla stood, her glow brightening slightly. We move further inside. I know tunnels. Old mining paths humans forget. They cannot follow easily. But we must be careful. One wrong step and they find us. Ethan followed, carrying their small supplies. The tunnels twisted and turned, the walls pressing close. His legs ached from the uneven floor, but adrenaline kept him going. Each corner could hide danger. Each shadow could be a hunter's vision. After a long walk, they reached a wide chamber where the mine opened into a natural cavern. Stalactites hung like teeth from above, and the sound of dripping water created a constant rhythm. Kayla paused, placing a hand on Ethan's arm. This place is good. Hard to see us from outside. Hard to hear our movements, she said. We can rest, think, plan. Ethan sank onto a rock. Plan what? Kayla's silver eyes met his. How to escape, my people. They are strong. They will not give up. But together, you and I, we can find a way. Humans are clever. You are clever. Her confidence in him surprised Ethan. He wasn't sure he felt clever, just stubborn. But somehow hearing her belief gave him courage. Okay, he said slowly. Then we figure it out, together. Kayla smiled, faint but genuine. Together, she repeated. They spent the next few hours moving quietly through the cavern, using side tunnels and hidden pockets to stay out of reach. Occasionally they would pause, listening for any hum or vibration from the hunters above. Each time Ethan felt his tension grow. Every shadow, every creak of stone made him flinch. Around dawn they reached a small underground lake, its water still and black as ink. Kayla knelt beside it, dipping her hand into the surface. The water rippled, reflecting her glow like a faint moon. This is good, she said. Hunters will not look here. Not often. We can hide for now, but not forever. Ethan crouched beside her, staring into the dark water. Not forever, he repeated. The weight of her words hit him. They could survive today, maybe tomorrow, but the threat would always return. They had to find a way to fight back or outsmart them. Kayla's expression grew serious. We cannot just hide. We must think, use what we have, confuse them, make them believe I am gone, lost. Use traps, diversions. I can guide you, but we need your mind, your cleverness. Ethan nodded. He didn't feel ready, but he knew he had no choice. Running blindly would only get them caught. He would have to be smarter, faster, braver than he had ever imagined. Hours later, as the sun rose faintly above the forest outside, the hunters' hums faded. Ethan leaned back against the cold stone, exhausted but alert. Kayla sat beside him, glowing faintly in the dark, her hand brushing his in silent reassurance. For the first time since that night began, Ethan allowed himself a thought. Maybe they could survive this. Maybe together they could outsmart the hunters. And in that moment he realized something else. He didn't just want to survive for himself. He wanted to protect Kayla no matter what it cost, because she had trusted him, because he could not imagine a future without her. And the night was far from over. The underground lake had given them temporary safety, but Ethan knew it could not last. The hunters were patient, relentless, and smarter than any predator he had ever imagined. Every sound above the cavern reminded him they could strike at any moment. Kayla sat on a stone ledge, her glow faint but steady. They will come, she said softly. Sooner or later they will find us. Hiding only buys time, Ethan nodded. He had spent hours thinking, pacing the cavern, trying to come up with a plan. Then we fight back, he said firmly. We can't just wait for them to catch us. Kayla's eyes widened slightly, not in fear but surprise. You fight? Humans are fragile. I may be fragile, Ethan admitted, but I know how to use what I have. I know traps, distractions. We can make them regret looking for you. Her glow brightened, and for the first time Ethan noticed a fire behind her eyes. She was small but not weak. She had survived this long for a reason. Then I will help, she said. I can guide you through their weaknesses. Together we can turn the hunt against them. The first plan was simple. They used the mine's tunnels to create confusion. Ethan moved rocks and debris to block paths, forcing the hunters to slow down. Kayla whispered instructions, guiding him toward hidden crevices where sound would echo and lights would reflect falsely. Hours passed. The hum of engines and the buzz of alien sensors grew louder. Ethan could hear footsteps above the rocks, the scraping of metal and faint voices speaking in a language he did not understand. The hunters were close. Wait, Kayla whispered, pressing her hand against Ethan's arm. They will come this way first. Be ready. Ethan held his flashlight like a weapon. Though he knew it was useless against an alien with advanced sensors, he focused on the plan. When the hunters entered the cavern, they would see shadows moving, hear noises that came from wrong directions, and waste precious moments tracking ghosts. The first hunters appeared at the tunnel's entrance. Tall, armored, and moving with eerie precision. Their eyes glowed faintly, scanning for heat and sound. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. Kayla whispered, "Now." Ethan grabbed a pile of loose rocks and kicked them into the main tunnel. The sound of tumbling stones echoed through the cavern. The hunters paused, scanning. Ethan ducked behind a rock ledge while Kayla melted into the shadows, her glow almost invisible. When the hunters moved forward, they stumbled into a false path Ethan had prepared. Loose boards and small pits delayed them. Kayla's voice guided him, pointing out weak spots in their formation. With each distraction, the hunters grew frustrated, moving more recklessly. "Keep going," Kayla urged. "Do not stop. Make them follow us deeper." They led the hunters into a narrow chamber where the ceiling hung low, and jagged stalactites dripped water onto the floor. Ethan whispered, "This is it. If we can get them here, they'll have nowhere to maneuver." Kayla nodded, her glow brightening like a warning light. "Yes, watch your step. Timing is everything." The hunters entered, scanning for heat. One of them stepped on a loose rock, sending it rolling toward Ethan's makeshift trigger. A cascade of debris tumbled down, striking the hunters' legs and knocking a few of them off balance. They hissed, strange sounds vibrating through the cavern. Ethan realized they had underestimated human ingenuity. He grabbed a fallen metal beam and swung it into another path, causing a small collapse that blocked a third hunter. Kayla used her speed and agility to dart between shadows, striking at sensors and blinding their instruments with quick flashes of her glow. The hunters roared in frustration. "Keep moving," Kayla whispered urgently. "They will adapt quickly if we pause." Ethan's muscles ached, his breath came in ragged gasps, but he kept going. Every step, every throw, every careful move delayed the hunters and protected Kayla. Together, they moved like a single entity, a human and an alien working in sync, turning the hunters' strength against them. After what felt like hours, the remaining hunters retreated, confused and frustrated by the traps and diversions. Their sensors had been damaged and their patience had worn thin. The cavern was quiet again, but the silence carried a new weight. Kayla collapsed on a rock, exhausted, her glow dimmer. "You did well," she said softly. "You are clever. Stronger than I thought." Ethan sank beside her, sweat and dust covering his face. "We did it together," he said quietly. Kayla's eyes met his, serious and unwavering. "Yes, together. That is the bond of a life mate. Not just strength or courage. Trust, partnership. Today you have shown both." Ethan swallowed hard. He wasn't sure he fully understood the bond yet, but he felt it growing, something deeper than survival, something that connected him to Kayla in ways he had never imagined. For the first time since the chase began, he allowed himself to feel a small spark of hope. They had survived the hunters' first assault. They had proved to themselves that together they were stronger. And as the cavern settled into a quiet stillness, Ethan realized that the fight was far from over. But for the first time, he believed they could face whatever came next, because they were no longer alone. They were a team, they were bound, and nothing could break that bond. Not yet. The underground cavern was quiet now, the echoes of the hunter's retreat fading into memory. Ethan sat on a cold rock, rubbing his sore arms and legs. He was tired in a way that ran deeper than muscles. It was the exhaustion of constant vigilance, of fighting for someone else's life as well as his own. Kayla sat beside him, her glow soft, almost peaceful. The events of the past night weighed heavily on them both. They had survived the hunter's first attack, but Ethan knew the threat was far from over. These weren't ordinary pursuers. They were relentless, patient, and skilled. Ethan looked at her, really looked at her for the first time since he had stopped to pick her up. Her silver eyes reflected the dim glow of the cavern, full of trust and quiet strength. She had faced fear, danger, and uncertainty without giving up, and she had chosen him, of all beings a human, to stand by her. "I need to ask you something," Ethan said slowly, his voice low. "If we make it out of this, what then? What happens with your people? With this life-mate bond?" Kayla turned to him, her expression calm but serious. "I cannot return," she said softly. "Not now. Not after I left. They will never forgive me. To return is to be captured, forced, used, and I will not go back. But the bond remains. You saved me when I was at my lowest. That will never change. Whether you accept it or not, our lives are linked." Ethan swallowed hard. The weight of her words pressed on him. He had been running through danger, trying to survive, and now he had to make a choice. Not about hiding or fighting, but about his own life. His heart thumped as he realized that leaving her would feel like abandoning more than just a stranger. I don't know if I understand all of it," he admitted. "But I do know this, I can't just leave you. You trusted me, and I trust you. I'll stand by you." A small smile broke across Kayla's face, her glow brightening just slightly. "Then we are bound. Together, not just by circumstance, but by choice. Ethan nodded, feeling a strange calm settle over him. The fear of the hunters, the uncertainty of her alien world, the danger, they were still there, but for the first time it felt manageable. They had each other, and that was a strength beyond anything he had known. Kayla rose, moving to a narrow passage she had discovered during their flight through the mine. "There is a path," she explained. "It leads to the surface, hidden, not easy to find. But if we follow it, we can leave Earth before they regroup." Ethan followed her, carrying their few belongings. The tunnels twisted and narrowed, forcing them to move carefully. The air smelled damp, earthy, but it was free. For the first time in hours, he felt the possibility of sunlight, of open sky, of freedom. At last, they emerged onto a cliff overlooking the edge of a forest. The first light of dawn spread across the horizon, painting the trees with soft gold and pink hues. Ethan breathed in deeply, letting the fresh air fill his lungs. Kayla's glow flickered as she looked toward the horizon, her expression thoughtful. "We can go anywhere," she said softly. "Your people, my people. We can choose our path now." Ethan looked at her, the weight of the past night giving way to hope. "Anywhere," he repeated. "Then we go." Together, they began walking along the cliff toward a small clearing where Ethan's car had been hidden. He glanced at Kayla, feeling a bond he could not fully explain. It was more than survival, more than trust. It was connection, choice, and responsibility intertwined. "You know," Ethan said quietly, "I never imagined picking up a stranger would change my life like this." Kayla laughed softly, the sound like silver bells echoing through the morning. "Neither did I, but fate has its ways. Sometimes it chooses, sometimes it guides, and sometimes it gives you courage you did not know you had." Ethan smiled, a warmth spreading through his chest. "I guess I'll have to get used to this. Life with an alien mate?" Kayla's eyes glimmered with amusement.
"Life with me," she corrected, "will be
"Different, but not impossible. With trust, courage, and cleverness, we can face anything." They retrieved the car and drove away from the forest, careful to leave no trace behind. As the sun climbed higher, Ethan realized that every mile they put between themselves and the hunters was more than just distance. It was freedom. They were leaving fear behind, even if only temporarily, and stepping into a future they chose together. Kayla leaned her head against the passenger window, watching the world pass by. "Your world is beautiful," she said softly. "Full of light, full of life, I think I like it here." Ethan glanced at her, feeling a protective warmth rise in him. "And I like having you here. You're not what I expected at all, but I'm glad it's you." Her silver eyes met his, filled with quiet affection. "And I am glad it is you," she whispered. The road stretched ahead, open and endless. Together, human and alien, they drove into a sunrise that promised freedom, choice, and a future built by their own hands. The night of fear, danger, and uncertainty had ended, but their journey was just beginning. And as the first rays of the sun touched the horizon, Ethan knew this was more than survival. This was life, full, unpredictable, and theirs. Bound by trust, choice, and courage, they would face the stars together.